All right, guys. I can't believe that the year has gone by so quickly, but also like not quickly enough, if that makes sense. But anyways, it is 2026 now. Time for me to do my monthly wrap up for the month of December, so let's get into it. First up, we have Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrew. Now, I don't have much to say about this book because it just, in my opinion, wasn't plotted very well. We have this girl who is basically cleaning out her old childhood home after having to leave with her mom. Her mom got full custody of her and like things were weird. And so she's cleaning out her father's house and comes across her old childhood friend in the basement, chained up. And that's where things kind of take a turn for the worse. So it has such an interesting premise, and that's what made me buy the book. But I think that there was just not a lot of action going on. Not to mention the FMC, she kind of annoys me, and I'm not really rooting for her because of like how she decides to go about this poor man that's chained up in the freaking basement. So yeah, I didn't really love this book because characters weren't really likable. I did not love the ending, how everything panned out, and things were kind of convoluted, but the magic wasn't really explained. So that made me very confused for the majority of it. I just had a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. So I gave this book, what did I give it? I gave this book 3 stars. And yeah, 3 stars seems about right for me. Next up, I read The Fallen and the Kiss of Dusk by Carissa Broadbent. This is the second book in well, technically this is the fourth book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, but this is the second book in this particular duology for that series. That sounds confusing. I'm sorry. But this follows the character Misha that we get introduced to in the first book, The Serpent and the Wings of Night. And this is kind of her story, her love story. And it was a fun time. I would say it was a lot. The things that I love so much about The Serpent and the Wings of Night is like the games and trials. But the thing is that the things that they were going through in here felt like not enough, but altogether too much. Like so much is happening, but nothing at all, if that makes sense. And I didn't particularly love Misha's character after the Serpent and the Wings duology. But I was hoping to really feel for her here, but I couldn't really empathize with her at a certain point still, and it took the majority of this series for her to apologize for the things that she did that set the Serpent in the Wings of Night in motion for the MMC's character in there. So that really made me mad. Also, there was too many A names. That's my biggest book pet peeve, is when there is multiple characters with the same or similar type names. So that could be a name that has like the same first letter. And that's just a me thing. That's a me thing. Because there was a character, main character's name is Azar, and then there's another character named like Atreus, and then there's another one named Atraxis, and it kind of gets a little confusing if you're in a fantasy world. You're trying to get all of these names straight, and it can be a little hard to follow. And I also kind of felt like this book was a little too long. I don't know. I felt like it lagged a bit. All that to say, I did actually enjoy this book. I know it doesn't sound like I did. I did enjoy this book. I just didn't enjoy it as much as the previous books. It was fun to see Misha's story, and the MMC is obsessed with Misha, which I love that in an MMC. And yeah, I don't know. I wanted more from this book, but yeah, I expected a little bit more for the final book in Misha's story, but it doesn't always work out like that. But again, I did enjoy this book. I just felt like maybe it was just a little too long, a little too long. But I gave this book 4.5 stars. I will be reading the next book in the series. It'll be another set of duologies, and I believe this is the last set of duologies in this whole series. So I'm excited to get to that one. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. we'll see how that goes. Yeah. Next up, I have A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. This book was very disappointing for me, which is really a bummer because it's such a pretty book. But essentially, this character, she's obsessed with this fantastical story, and she kind of connects with the characters in the story because the like the Fae King or whatever that has the lore within this book, she has seen him herself, so she had this moment of validation with this series. So she is asked, because she's in the architectural program, and she like applies to this program where the architectural student can help build this author, her favorite author's home, like to remodel it in a way. And so she wants to do this because she has such a connection with the story. So she goes, she's selected, and she goes, and things are kind of odd from moment one. She's having a lot of like paranoia, which would be intense, but this character is like so fully in denial because everyone's told her she's wrong that it kind of is frustrating for me as a reader to read. And then not only that, she's very not nice to one of the MMC in this book. She's honestly kind of very prejudiced towards his kind, and that rubbed me the wrong way. Didn't love it. The whole story is kind of just like a hunt for more information in regards to this story that she loves and more facts on like the author. And for me, that wasn't really interesting enough to keep my attention. And I didn't really love the FMC. Like I said, she was kind of prejudiced towards the MMC, and I didn't love that. And then the whole build up to this big reveal, which we all saw coming. Let's be honest. We all saw it coming, and it was very short-lived. So I just wholeheartedly didn't enjoy this book. I will continue the second book because it is not, it's following the same characters, but it'll be a little different, I hope. I hope it'll be a little different. The story on that one sounds a little more interesting than like essentially a fact hunt, which is what this was. So I gave this book 2.5 stars. I wish I loved it a little more, especially since it's such a pretty book, but I'm hoping the second book will be better so I can keep these books on my shelf because they are pretty. So we'll see. All right, next up I have Lana Harper's Back in a Spell. So this book follows a female witch in a family of witches that isn't really liked by the other family witches. They have quite a reputation of kind of being narcissistic and selfish. But she goes on a date, and that date goes terribly wrong. Didn't have a good moment at all. But then the next day, something happens, and she ends up getting like a power boost in her magic, and she doesn't know what happened. But not only that, she gets emotionally, not emotionally, but like connected in a way to her date that went bad. And so now he has access to her magical abilities. And so they have to figure out what is going on and how to fix everything. Now, I enjoyed it to a point. I think that the relationship between the MMC and the FMC happened way too quickly for like the fact that they absolutely hated each other, and then like 24 hours later, bam, like they're good now. They're doing spicy things. Okay? I didn't love how fast that relationship, turned around. And then I didn't love that the FMC, she has like a choice to kind of be honest and upfront with the community, and she is like, or I could just be selfish. And she's having such a hard time choosing which would be the right decision for herself. And I think that's what really rubbed me the wrong way, because you're having to take days to make this choice of whether to do the actual right thing or just be selfish, and that was a hard choice. And I think the only reason she actually chose the right thing is because of her relationship with the MMC, and he kind of gives her like an ultimatum of sorts. So yeah, I didn't really love her character. And then I think the wrong character gets severely punished. I don't think the FMC should have gotten such a light punishment at the end. It is more on a different character who its only real problem is being narcissistic. She didn't actually do anything. So I think all of that kind of culminated into me not loving this book. It could have gone a completely different way. It had all of the elements of a fun, whimsical book, but just the characters. It always comes down to the characters. I just couldn't get down with them. So I gave this book 3 stars. Next up, I read the duology Feather So Vicious and Shadow So Cruel by Liv Zander here. And I so much adored this. I loved this duology so much. The first book, Feather So Vicious, was so intense, had me at the edge of my seat, had me hooked from the first freaking page. It was so good. So essentially this girl, who is the daughter of a prominent ally to this king, basically gets taken as like leverage to get a prisoner of war, of this bunch of, what is it? Is it murder? Murder of crows? Yeah. Crows. They're crows, right? They're crows. No, they're ravens. What is that called? Unkindness. Oh my gosh, it's unkindness. If One Tree Hill has taught me anything, it is an unkindness of ravens. Whew. But anyways, so they are ravens, and they're raven shifters, and they have been in battle for years, and they're just trying to get a handle on this war. They haven't really done anything wrong, but they're still fighting to get their land, to not be prisoners anymore. So every time someone gets captured, it is a to-do. But anyways, this girl gets captured by the ravens and is used as leverage to get a prisoner of war, like I said, from the raven side. And the way the king of like the ravens hates this girl. Like, this is a true enemies to lovers. I don't think I can stress that enough. It is a true enemies to lovers times 1,000. There is another love interest in here, and he is also like, I love him, but the way that this king hates her, and just the setup, there's a lot of flashbacks in here to really hone in why this king hates this girl's father is freaking nuts. Again, edge of my seat, absolutely love this book. So this book I gave 5 stars. And then moving on to the second book, I cried. No one warned me. No one warned me how emotionally devastating this book was going to be. I was not prepared, but I still thoroughly enjoyed this. I did feel it like it lulled in some areas, but overall, I really enjoyed this book as much as the first book, but I did give it 4.5 stars. It just wasn't as like page turning as this one. So, but together, such a great duology. So good. Next up, I have Kristen Hanna's The Nightingale. Now, this was a tough one to read. I actually listened to this book because I knew I wasn't going to be able to get through it physically. So this one it follows 2 sisters, and the scene is Paris, at the beginning and all throughout to the end of World War II. And you guessed it, it's very emotionally driven. It's really just following these 2 sisters. That's literally the plot, is following these 2 sisters and how they are coping and how they are reacting to all of the fallout of the war. And it is a lot. It is a lot. I don't think I could really get you to comprehend the emotions I was really feeling when reading this book. I will say that there is one of the sisters, she does something that absolutely irked me to the point where I don't think I could ever forgive her for what she did. But the way that Kristen Hanna really invokes the emotions and the character development is top tier. I really had to question, like, it puts you in a place where you question yourself, like, what would I do? Which sister would I be? What route would I take if I was put in their position? And yeah, it was a lot. I cried like 5 times. Even at the end, last chapter, I was still shedding tears, and I don't think I could really forget this book. I don't think I'll ever cope with this book. But I will say it was kind of slow. I don't think I would have been able to get through it as quickly as I did had I not listened to this book, because the pacing is not great. The story is beautiful. The writing is fantastic, but the pacing could use some work. But for all those reasons, I gave this book 4.75 stars. Again, fantastic book, but definitely bring some tissues with you if you plan on reading it. Next up, I have Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Now, let me say, I would love to find a man that was written by Abby Jimenez, because the MMCs she's written that I have read have all been swoon worthy. So beautiful. Like, if any man, I would like to take notes of what a woman wants, just pick up a book by Abby Jimenez, because that's what we want. That's what we want. Okay? But anyways, this book is very much opposite Subtract. We have a guy who is like in the country. Like, this is the type of like town that gets shut down during like the winter time, because they really just live for the tourists. And then we have a girl who's prominent doctor who is basically a legend. Like, her family is a legend in the medical world, and she just has to try to live up to all that brings in her last name, essentially. But something happens and she ends up stranded in this town, and she meets this guy and they kind of hit it off. And that's kind of where it goes from there. They try to figure out the relationship, and trying to balance that act out on her world and his world. And it is so good. I love this MMC. There's like fun, cute little animals as well. There's quirky characters. There's serious tropes like domestic abuse, you know? We have all of the elements of a great book, and Abby killed it. I did learn, however, that this is the first book in like the series. So like the second book is technically Yours Truly, because it like follows the same type of characters, but not the main ones. And then we have the last one, which is Just for the Summer. I didn't realize that. And I actually read Yours Truly first, years ago. And then I read Just for the Summer not too long ago. And then I read this one. But everything kind of came together because I remember a lot from Just for the Summer, because it was a relatively recent read. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember these characters because they pop up again in Just for the Summer. So if you're going to read this series, well, if you're going to read this book, definitely start with this one. Start with this one and go in the order, because it's definitely going to pay out, because there are some questions that I had for one of the characters in here. But then I remembered that in Just for the Summer, those questions are answered. So definitely read this, read Yours Truly, read Just for the Summer, and then you'll get the full impact of this story and these characters. And what a story, and what characters they are. Anyways, if it wasn't obvious, I gave this book 5 stars. Duh. Next up, I have Sweet Venom by Raina Kent. Now, I was really excited to get into this book because I really loved, Beautiful Venom, which is the first book in this series. And I was actually a little disappointed with this book, mainly because this book follows the sister of the FMC in the first one. And we kind of get the lowdown of how she got into a coma, and so just pre and post coma and all that came with it. and why she hates the MMC so much. And I didn't understand why we decided to go that route. Honestly would have preferred a shorter meet in the first part of this book, like maybe a couple chapters of them meeting and him threatening her type of thing, and then her going into this coma and then coming out and them trying to go on this path into a relationship, you know? But I just didn't like the setup of it all. We got a lot of and I would have liked to see more of like an enemies to lovers type of thing. I wanted to see her be afraid. I wanted him to make it tension filled by like threatening her and like, you know, actually doing the things to threaten her. But she was like scared for like no reason, and her trauma was valid. Her trauma was definitely valid, from like her own childhood and everything. But even that, I felt that was like a little overdone in a way. Like it was always about the childhood trauma, which yes, it was very traumatic. But just the things that I wish were expanded on were not. And the things that were expanded on, I could have done less with, you know? So yeah, overall, I didn't love this book. I mean, I still enjoyed it for the most part, but it was a little hard to get through, because I lost interest and I felt like maybe it was a little too long. But again, it could also lead down to the setup of everything. There was a lot of pre-coma and then a lot of a good handful of post-coma, but I would have liked to see like a little pre-coma and then a lot of post-coma. I don't know. That's how my brain is working. But anyways, I gave this book 3.75 stars. It's still a good read, so pick it up, but definitely read the first one first, because that one is chef's kiss and definitely needed to get into this one. Next up, I fell into the wormhole that was this series. I watched the entire series and was obsessed. So obviously when I saw this book in the bookstore, I had to pick it up and then immediately read it, because I was getting withdrawals from this book. So I picked up Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed, and I loved this book so much. It actually surprised me how much it is close to like the actual show. Like the show did a phenomenal job with the accuracy to the book, which sometimes is not always the case, but I love that it was the case for this one. So we're following Ilya and Shane. They are two hockey players. They get drafted around the same time and they end up being like the best of the best. Wow, words. The best of the best in their respective teams. Like they're the best of the best, probably like in the whole league. And yeah, they've just been put against each other for years and years, so this follows them over the years. But also within those years, they develop a secret life relationship. At first, it's more on the, you know, the smuttier side. We're getting a lot of just sex, a lot of physical relationships. But you know, through the years, we get a more of an emotional one, and that roller coaster is fantastic. I ate it up, and I watched the show. I watched the show before I read the book, and I ate this book up still. It was like a 24-hour read for me. I still finished it in a day because I absolutely love their story, and I absolutely loved the story that they show on the show. Now, obviously, I had to continue with the series, and I ended up buying the ebook, The Long Game, which is basically the finale of their story, because there are other books in the series, but I was really just focused on Ilya and Shane. I really wanted to see their story and how it kind of pans out, especially since I'll be waiting for so long to get season 2. So I wanted to see how that goes. And will I? I will definitely say that Ilya is so freaking funny. I love him so much because of his sarcasm. It's just hilarious. I laughed out loud multiple times because she's just like Shane says all the time, he's an asshole, but it's so endearing that you fall in love with him just as much as Shane does. So love the characters, love all that comes with it. For Heated Rivalry, of course, I gave this 5 stars. But for The Long Game, I gave that one 4.5 stars. I did feel like it lulled in some areas and it just felt a little too long at some point. But I really love the slow progression of their relationship in after the whole they decided to be together type of thing, and all the issues that come with trying to have a secret relationship and the long distance, and all of it was just so interesting to read, and I loved it. So yes, 4.5 stars for Long Game, 5 stars for Heated Rivalry. Definitely pick this series up. I do plan on going back to read the other characters' stories because I still want to know about them, but I was just too obsessed with Ilya and Shane to read them now. I wanted to get to them first. So I will be reading the other ones, so I'm excited to get into those ones. So yeah. Okay, final book that I read for the month of December. I actually finished this one up on New Year's Eve. It was Branded by Saffron Kent. And I am going to be honest, I had a really hard time finishing this book. I started on New Year's Eve and I wanted to finish it by New Year's Eve, and I did. And it's a hefty book. It's 446 pages, but oh my gosh, was it too long. So basically the story is this girl is writing letters to a felon in prison. So it's like a pen pal situation. She's doing it for a school thing because she needs extra credit, and it's like a whole sociology thing and whatever. So she's doing it for school, and through these letters that she initially does for school, she ends up getting a more emotional attachment to this convict, and then he gets out of prison and has to meet up, and that's where kind of things take a turn. And that's the general premise of the story, and it sounds interesting. I think the beginning had a very strong start. However, I personally thought that this book was a tad uninspired. I felt like a lot of tropes and like a bunch of different elements were getting just thrown into the book, and it didn't really make a lot of sense. The characters themselves didn't make a lot of sense. They would say and do one thing, and then like a couple chapters later they would switch it up, and I kept getting whiplash as the reader. I was like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. Not to mention, there's certain words that really made me want to DNF it. Just made me cringe. There was a lot of instances that made me cringe. In fact, the FMC at one point gave me the ick, and that has never happened for a female character for me. So that was a first. Didn't love that. This book could have been at least 100 pages shorter. I wish it was, because it would have been a little bit better. I remember reading it and getting to like page 300, and well, not even. It was like a 280 or something like that, and realizing that I still had nearly 200 pages to go, and I just didn't know where the story was going to go from there. And honestly, where I was in that book, I think they really could have cut at least a good 100 pages. There's so much filler. It just was not a good time. I gave this book, Branded, 2.5 stars. Again, didn't love it. I think I only gave it like the 0.5 because there were like a couple of scenes that I really enjoyed, but those were few and far between, so I don't recommend this. All right, those were all of the books that I read for the month of December. It's a pretty light month if you're taking into account the entire year. That's probably my shortest, my least amount of books that I have read for the entire year was in the month of December. It was just a very hectic month. You got a lot of holidays going on, very stressful. So I only managed to read 13 books total, and 6 of those were through an e-reader. I actually got a Kobo gifted to me for Christmas, so I did read actually one of the books on my Kobo, and I'm still using my Kindle. I'm thinking about doing like a comparison between the two words, between the two once I've used my Kobo for a little longer, so I might do a video on that, so stay tuned. So yes, 6 books on my e-reader, 5 books on audio, and 2 physical reads, totaling to, of course, 13 books. So yeah, those are all the books. I would say that my most anticipated read, I usually do it for like the next month, but I think I'm going to do it for the year end in its entirety since we're going into a new year, 2026. So I would say my most anticipated read for the year of 2026 is Frozen by Stardust by Elizabeth Helen. It is the 5th book in the Beasts of the Briar series. I've been on pins and needles for over a year for this 5th book, so I'm ready. I'm ready for it to finally release, and I think it releases in April. And then the next 2 books in that series also release this year, but I don't know when. But I know it's going to be complete by the end of this year, which is very exciting. But anyways, I am babbling now. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed your 2025 and hopefully your 2026 is fantastic. Hopefully your reading goals have been set. You are diving into 2026 with all of the hope and all of the goals and all the resolutions. I love the beginning of a year because it just feels so fresh and new because, you know, new year, new me, you know. And if you guys had any questions, or if you guys had any comments about the books that I read, if you liked or disliked the book, let me know. Let's talk about it. But until next time, guys, read on, my bookish friends.